All transformation starts with a destination, especially personal transformation. Hi everyone, welcome to this week's Karma Cards. I hope that you are having a beautiful week. I cannot wait to find out what the message is from the team with the cards this week, but I will tell you what's coming up internally that I'm being asked to share. So as I stated earlier, personal transformation starts with a destination. And this comes up because it's so easy to kind of get caught up in trying to better yourself or better your life that you forget what you're trying to better it into. And many times when we set goals, it doesn't matter if they're personal growth goals, if they're physical world goals, if they're career goals, relationship, all the same. We sort of think about the end destination, right? And that makes sense. That's the big picture. That's the North Star of where you want to go. And the mindset can tend to go, okay, I'm here and I have to go right there. That's where I'm going. There's, it's a beeline. It's A to B. And really, it's more like A to B to C to D, all the way until you hit that destination point. And it can be easy to feel overwhelmed by where you're trying to go. So let's put it in the context of a spiritual transformation. Let's say you want to transcend this experience and raise your frequency up to that of one of illumination, enlightenment, and mastery. That's a great goal to have, and it's pretty big. And it can be really hard to know if you're getting there if you don't know your start point. So today's message is fairly simple and it makes sense. And the best way I can describe it is, those maps that you see sometimes in movies or cartoons where it's like a traveling map where you're watching the character travel from one pinpoint across to another pinpoint and on and on. I want you to think of your big transformation goal, whatever it is, whether it's spiritual, emotional, mental, physical. Think of it a lot like one of those maps. And the analogy my team gave to share with you is, let's pretend our big goal is to travel around the world. Let's say that's the big goal. Then I'll know I've achieved something because I traveled around the world. In order to know that we did it, we would first have to know how we achieved it. And to do that, we need to look at what's the first location? What's my start point? Where am I starting from? And what is the next point that I'm going to move to? So just like those pins where you're moving from your starting city to the next destination, right? So we know that we're not going to travel around the world in one fell swoop, like just start where we are, sweep around the earth and come back. I mean, we could do that, but it doesn't really, that's not the intent of traveling around the world, is it? It is to actually experience other parts of the world. That's the point, right? So we have to identify our start location and what is the first destination. Now, let's think about this like we were going to plan a trip together around the world. Does it make sense, if we're trying to experience the world, to start with a point that's really far away from us? Or does it make sense to start with the closest location to where we currently are? So let's say we're starting in Seattle, and the first thing we want to do is travel to New York. Now, obviously, Seattle to New York is not around the world. That's just around the country, right? But it gives us the next location and the closest location for our bigger journey. So for today, the exercise that I'm being inspired to share with you is find your current set point. So number one, let's think about the destination. What is it you're trying to get to? Or what is it you're trying to become? So first, write down your destination. I'll wait. Okay, now that you have a destination, let's start with the most crucial point, and that's starting from where you are. So I want you to make a current moment checklist. This is just an acknowledgement of where you are. So if you're looking at any kind of goal, it's a great way to just assess what's everything that's going on. So an easy way to do this, take a sheet of paper. You can make a pros and cons column, or positive and negative, however you want to state it. The reason why I want you to think about both is because usually when we're thinking about what we are trying to transform to or where we're going, what's moving you to go there? Discomfort, right? And where does discomfort come from? Probably from the negative category. So it's really easy to be like, oh, I hate my job. My house is too small. My mortgage is too high. The things that upset you, that are catalyzing you to want to transform. These are good to know, but we also want to acknowledge that there are beautiful things going on. Like I have a loving relationship with my spouse, or I've paid off all my student loans, or something, and as many some things as you can currently track. This is going to show you your start point. And then it makes it easier to decide what's the next location, what's the next closest location to me, so I'm experiencing as much as I can. Now we know that this next location isn't the final destination, but it helps you find a way to the transformation you're going toward. It moves you in that right direction without overwhelming you or making it feel like it's too hard, too far away, too high to reach. You really want to help yourself with growth and transformation and manifestation by finding the adjacent, the next best feeling, the next best location. So make sure that you're taking that list and you're doing as thorough a job as you can. So I like to do what's called a present moment checklist. And by the way, this is great to use if you're in a moment of doubt, fear, worry, or anxiety, is to literally track everything that's happening around you. Like, for example, do you have a roof over your head? Do you have food in the house? Is there money in the bank? Is there heat? Do you have a bed to sleep in? Do you have clothes to wear to keep you warm? Do you have, it seems minor. It's like all this stuff that we tend to take for granted. But when we actually stop and acknowledge what we have, it's so much easier to move out of the fear of, I might not, or this could get taken away, because that's what anxiety does, right? You're projecting into a future you can't control, and you're already losing things or going into a lack state by doing that. So by tuning back into the present moment and really acknowledging everything that is around you that's working for you, so much so that you might even take it for granted, it helps you feel more solid and more secure with where you are in this moment. From those lists where you're writing down all the things that are working and all the things that aren't, it's going to be clearer and clearer, A, what you want to keep, because obviously we want to keep what is working, but B, it'll make destination, number 2, so much easier to identify, a closer thing to work toward. If you notice in your negatives columns, there's a lot of feelings of lack, right, in there, then you know that the next destination is going to be moving to a place where you feel more secure, feeling more secure with where you currently are. And that's going to help you find, how do I need to shift my mindset? And then it's going to help you start creating from that space. And when you create from a new space, you're going to create something new in your life, which can look like a type of result. So for this week, take a moment and just check in with where you are and find the map and put the pin in the very next location. And then you'll know how to do it for each subsequent location. You'll know how to continue to move forward. Because at some point you're going to recognize, wait, I think I've moved energetically or literally to this new space. And once you know that, once your consciousness can recognize it, you take that current moment inventory again, and then you know the next location. So with that, let's do some karma cards. So for those who are new to karma cards, let me quickly show you how these work. I have 3 decks. I have the planets, signs of the zodiac, and the houses of astrology. And I've already asked my team in spirit, what is the message for this week? And I've got 2 sets of answers, one in red and a set in blue. Red or action, blue or outcome. And the way that you play is you tune in intuitively and you feel for what is desired for the next week. Do I want action-related answers or outcome-related answers? And of course, you can always choose both. While you're deciding, let me tell you the timing for this reading. This reading is for February 24th through March 3rd. And the flavor of this reading. Okay, so we have Saturn. Restrictions and lessons. Okay. In the sign of Gemini, which is about local learning, learning about yourself, learning about your environment. Interesting. So lessons there. In the 3rd house of communication. Now, Gemini rules the 3rd house, and the 3rd house is planetarily ruled by Mercury. And this reading is really interesting because what it literally represents is something happening in the sky right now. We've got Saturn conjunct Mercury. So let me tell you what that means just before we even start. So currently, Saturn and Mercury are both in the sign of Aquarius, which is about the new age, which is so interesting because Aquarius is that visionary, forward-thinking, humanitarian energy. It can also be, when it's negative, a little bit cold and too scientific, and sort of have that dark mentality of the greater good, right? So it's very interesting because it can be very benevolent or seriously detached from outcomes and emotions and who's involved. It's very interesting. With these two, Saturn and Mercury, conjuncting together, what we've got here are a stifling, actually, of mental energy. There's not a lot of outward expression, which Mercury loves. Mercury loves outward expression. But right now with Saturn involved, it's like learning the lessons of this energy through the mind and a desire to study or go deeper within. So it internalizes that fast-moving Mercury energy and wanting to, like Saturn saying, hold your tongue. Think before you speak, because it has implications. That's what Saturn tells Mercury. So Mercury is like, that's the best way I could describe it, is that moment right there is kind of what's happening energetically on a mind frequency level that we can all tap into. Now we can, use that energy to allow us to study and inwardly reflect and understand deeper, and therefore it works for us. Or we can try to work through it, in which case it feels like our words have more of a karmic weight than normal. Even though words always have a weight to them, right now it feels extra heavy, if that makes sense. So it's like, choose wisely what you say, and like, don't speak unless you have something you want to say, because what you say has implications that are heavier at this time. There we go. Okay, so now let's look at what the cards are saying. So for those choosing action, your spiritual action is be realistic about what you want to be known, about making the right connections. So there's a lot going on in the world. There's probably a lot going on with you personally, and you're trying to work it out, just like everybody else. We're all trying to work out what the heck's going on. How does this all working? What's the motives behind it? Who's behind it? Blah, blah, blah. We're all trying to figure that out right now. And it's saying, again, that we've got this hold your tongue energy. It's like, before you go deciding through words what is happening, or this is what it all means and that's it. It's kind of like, there again, we're asking ourselves to review. It's a self-review, self-reflect. Before I speak, I look at my script internally, right? I look at the words I'm about to say, or I look at the connections I'm about to make, and I'm asking myself, is that realistic? Does that actually make sense? Do these work together? Okay? Interesting. Mental action at this time. Be concerned about what is believed about the idea in question. Interesting. So not only are we being asked to question the ideas we're being put together, but we're asking, what do we believe about that before we ask the question? Are we coming from a neutral place, or are we coming from a bias of some sort? Do we have a personal belief about anything that's coming up in front of us, whether it's external world or internal world? Especially with internal world, this is so important because many times we have belief systems operating that we are oblivious to. They're operating, but they've been operating in us for so long that we don't even realize there's a belief system attached to it. So we're being asked to think deeper than just question, why do I think that? Ask after that question, is this a belief system? Is there any other way to see this? Is there a more neutral way to see this? I think these questions are very interesting. And when you're asking that of yourself earnestly, I do think that you will get a real answer there. I think you can, with those questions, bypass ego a bit and get to your observer self. So give that a try. Physical action. You must wait before you can use the quickest way and get your ideas going. Okay, so again, with these two together, this is probably irritating for Mercury more than Saturn. Mercury is fast, right? And it wants to get it out there. It's got the idea super quick. It's ready to go. Saturn is pulling, it's like pulling Mercury by the back of the shirt and being like, wait a minute, double check it, triple check it again. And that's the kind of energy that we're feeling here, is that we might feel like we know the quickest way to action, maybe the quickest way to heal, or the quickest way to manifest or produce a result. And we're being asked right now not to use that way, but rather to be more conscientious and thorough with what it is we are trying to get out. What are we trying to express? I mean, that's it in a nutshell. Everything that this is saying is be more conscientious and thorough with what you're trying to express at this time. Now let's look at outcomes for Saturn in Gemini in the third house of communication. So the spiritual outcome at this time, the maturity, there's the win. I'd see, this isn't for nothing. This is a win. The maturity that brings information to explain your ideas. This is why Saturn's got his hand on the back of Mercury's shirt, trying to pull him back and be like, wait a minute, you didn't finish, you didn't dot the things, or you didn't put the garnish on top. Wait a minute. When you sit with it a little longer, right? It's like aging a fine wine. It matures, it deepens, it develops, it becomes more complex and embodied. And perhaps the rush to get it out there would create sort of an incomplete or easy to misunderstand expression. And so right now what they're saying is, by being held back, by being asked to study, contemplate, reflect, observe more about what it is you're trying to express, right? So again, Mercury is also about expression. This is you expressing your essence. By being more thorough about that at this time, you're really going to get a more full-bodied and complex message out there, something much deeper, something much more potent. So there's the payoff. Mental outcome. Caution regarding communications about short-term thinking and trips. This one always, it's a little bit throwing, but with Mercury, what we're looking at here is that, again, snap decisions, quick energy, and that's what it's talking about. So caution regarding communications about this. Again, it's like, unless the idea is fully formed or fully understood, we're being, again, asked to reserve. What? I'm getting, see here, this is hard to communicate this in this energy, but it's like less is more. It's also that same energy of don't talk about it before you've done it, right? So how many out there are entrepreneurs? I've heard this more in entrepreneurial circles than anywhere else. But it's like when you have an idea, when you have a plan, it is more potent when you reserve it. You hold it within and you work on it in a very small energy, meaning maybe just you and you, or you and one other person, but you keep it very tight-lipped and to yourself. You speak nothing of it until it is ready to go. And that's because it takes energy out of the creation. So the more you talk about it, the more you sort of have this weird feeling like I did it, but all you did was talk about it. It kind of goes back to last week's message where I was talking about how the mind can trick us into thinking we've done the work. When the mind understands the process, right, then it feels like I did it, even though we might not have taken the actions we need to take with that understanding. This is some of that same kind of energy where it's saying, don't let the air out of the balloon in a way. Like, don't speak it out of energy. Sometimes by speaking that I'm going to do this thing, we again sort of trick ourselves into, I did it. I said I was going to do it and that's good enough, right? No, you didn't, right? So if you're, for example, I don't know why this is coming in, but it's like, imagine that you were thinking about writing a book and you're holding all this energy and you're getting, like, it's like you're getting inspiration, you know what it's about, you've got some of the chapters down, you're like, it's really starting to form. And that's a crucial point in which you should be then translating that into something. You should be putting that energy onto paper, into the computer, capturing it as it's coming in. But it's like you don't say anything. If you were to then start communicating, I'm going to write a book and this is what it's about and this is the chapter I know I'm going to get, what's going to happen? One, you're going to kind of ride out that energy, let some air out of the balloon. Two, now you've made it susceptible to outside influence. And what's your idea anymore? If someone's like, well, I would change it to this because that's not really blah, blah, blah. Already it's starting to taint the manifestation. It's changing it from yours to now yours and this person's opinion and that person's criticism, da, 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 da. Changes the energy and it warps it. By being reserved, holding it in and waiting to feel, is this the appropriate moment? You're conserving some of that creative energy, some of that self-expressive energy. And you're going to know that this is my expression versus it was my expression, or now I'm not sure because now I'm doubtful of what I'm holding because X, Y, and Z. Physical outcome. Limits impose resulting from the fluctuations of who and what is around you. Again, it's kind of the same thing I just said. The limits imposed here, though, are actually more like internally driven. I get it's not so much like someone else is putting limits on you, although under this energy it certainly can be. I feel like, again, the awareness of I need to work on this for myself. I need to keep this within my own sphere right now. And they're saying you will impose these limits because of how the outside world around you keeps fluctuating, right? People's opinions, the groups you're around, the energies you're with, they're not as stable. They're not a constant. It's not like I said, if you were working on it with another person, that would be a constant energy. What they're saying here is there isn't a constant energy, or a consistent energy rather, around you. There's too much fluctuation, and that's going to naturally make you go, you know what? Not ready yet. Nope. I'm working on you'll see. Like that's pretty much that feels like as much information as people are going to give. I'm working on, you'll see. And that's probably the best way to state it. You've already now stated that, you've put an intention out there. People know you're working on something, but you are reserving that energy. You're keeping it in and you're letting it mature and become more full-bodied and complex. And the creation or the expression at this point is going to be much more in alignment with that beautiful spark of inspiration that you got that made you want to make this change. Now, in my example, I'm using a book, but look, this goes right back to what we were talking about earlier with transformation. This is the change, right? If you know what point A is, which is where you are, and the next point you're moving to, talking about it is going to let the air out of it. So instead, you're going to be more reflective with this energy. You're going to take that information in, process it, let it sit with you. You're going to get the aha, this is my next place to go. This is the next logical version of me to come forward. Now hold that. It's like a beautiful potion. Put a cork in it and let it mature inside of you so that you have the energy, right? The energy starts to build inside of you to create that momentum in that direction. So again, you are transforming just like a beautiful alchemist would do. They're transforming. Sometimes they have to put a stopper in the bottle and let it sit for a minute. And basically, I feel like that's what's being asked of you right now. Keep the cards to the chest, keep the eye on the prize, but keep it all internalized and just let yourself naturally move to the next point. You'll know you're there because someone will be like, oh my gosh, look at where you are now. You were over here, now you're over there. You've done something. You'll know. They'll know. You'll have that satisfaction of validation. And most importantly, you'll have it from within. And it's like you are using mastery by knowing when to share your expression and when to let it mature. And with that, I'm sending you so much love. Mwah. Have a beautiful week. Thank you for watching. Subscribe now and hit the notification bell so that you know the next time I release a new video. Until then, stay magical.